Hello. Today General Hospital will reveal Maxie's collapse into a coma after the devastating shock in Port Charles sent waves of fear and despair through everyone who loved her. Her condition was precarious, and the decision was made quickly to transfer her to Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston, a facility with an international reputation for its specialists in complex neurological care. For her family and friends, this move represented not just a medical necessity, but also a shield of protection. Port Charles had become far too dangerous for her, especially with Sidwell still lurking in the shadows. He was determined to silence her forever, ensuring she would never open her eyes again. Sending Maxie away seemed to be the only way to distance her from the immediate threat, while also giving her access to cutting-edge treatment that could perhaps bring her back to life. For a brief moment, those who cared for her allowed themselves to breathe easier, believing they had secured both safety and hope. That fragile sense of relief shattered almost as soon as it formed. Not long after Maxie arrived in Boston, Spinelli received an urgent call from Massachusetts General. The hospital staff informed him that Maxie was gone. She had vanished without a trace from the specialized coma care unit where she had been admitted. The news was incomprehensible. Her medical chart, filled with detailed notes and updates, was still in place. The machines that had monitored her vitals only hours earlier had been found switched off. Even more disturbing, the hospital's surveillance system had suffered an unexplained outage during the precise window of time she disappeared. The timing was too precise, too calculated, for anyone to call it a coincidence. The initial speculation was disjointed and desperate. Some suggested the possibility of Maxie somehow regaining partial consciousness and attempting to escape, but that idea was quickly dismissed. Her neurological scans had shown deep, prolonged coma activity, leaving her incapable of such a feat. The far more chilling explanation, one no one wanted to say out loud at first, was that someone had abducted her. The thought of Maxie being taken from the hospital, helpless and defenseless, sent a shockwave of dread through those who loved her. For Spinelli, the news was almost too much to bear. His entire world seemed to collapse in that single moment, his heart split between anguish and disbelief. Yet even in his despair, Spinelli's instincts refused to let him stay paralyzed. He had always been resourceful, always relentless when it came to protecting Maxie. The bond between them was too strong to allow him to sit idle while she was in danger. The moment he hung up the phone, he knew he could not waste another second. Somewhere out there, Maxie's life hung in the balance, and if Sidwell or another hidden enemy had orchestrated this disappearance, then every passing moment only increased the risk. Fueled by equal parts fear and determination, Spinelli vowed to uncover the truth. He would scour every record, chase every lead, and confront any danger necessary. What made the situation even more terrifying was the possibility that this was not random. The blackout of hospital security systems suggested inside knowledge or deliberate tampering. If Sidwell was indeed responsible, then he had managed to extend his reach far beyond Port Charles, into one of the most secure hospitals in the country. But if it wasn't him, then the mystery grew even darker. Who else could have wanted Maxie gone, and for what purpose? These questions tore at Spinelli as he prepared himself for a search that promised to be more dangerous and more heartbreaking than anything he had faced before. Maxie's disappearance was no longer just a medical crisis, it had become a chilling conspiracy. Her transfer to Boston, once thought to be her salvation, had instead turned into the prelude of an even deeper nightmare. Now, as her loved ones waited for answers, the fate of Maxie Jones was uncertain, suspended in a shadowy realm between hope and fear, rescue and ruin. And Spinelli knew he had no choice but to follow every thread, no matter how perilous, to bring her back before it was too late. Sidwell thrived in the kind of chaos that left others sleepless and broken. To him, Maxie's coma was not a tragedy but a carefully calculated success, a silent victory carved out of science and cruelty. He had long understood that eliminating someone permanently did not always require blood on his hands. Sometimes, the more efficient strategy was to create a prison from which there was no escape, a prison inside the mind. Maxie embodied that victory. The compound designed by his unnamed associate had worked with horrifying precision, drawing her into a state of near-permanent unconsciousness. Her mind drifted somewhere unreachable, her body sustained by machines, her voice silenced indefinitely. Sidwell reveled in the knowledge that Maxie, who once stood on the brink of exposing dangerous secrets about Sonny and his connections, was now incapable of so much as whispering a name. In his world of shadow politics, where whispers could ignite wars, Maxie's silence was priceless. Yet what was supposed to be a sealed triumph began to crumble with her disappearance. The news that Maxie had vanished from Massachusetts General struck like a hidden blade, sharp and disorienting. Even Sidwell, whose cold calculation rarely faltered, was forced into contemplation. He replayed every detail in his mind, weighing whether this was the result of his own machinations or whether another actor had entered the stage. If it had been his doing, then it would have been a meticulously planned transfer, a quiet relocation to ensure that the skilled physicians in Boston would not find a way to rouse her. But if not, then the possibility opened to something more dangerous, that someone else had stolen his victory. The mystery surrounding her disappearance invited speculation that spread like wildfire. Massachusetts General was known for its security, for its protocols, for its reputation as one of the safest havens for patients of her condition. For Maxie to simply vanish, with medical records intact and surveillance cameras failing at the precise moment she was taken, suggested not only orchestration but also infiltration of the highest order. Sidwell's mind lingered on whispers he had once dismissed, the idea that Massachusetts was only a way station, that the true destination for patients like Maxie was somewhere far more sinister. The name that surfaced most often was the Five Poppies Resort. Cloaked in luxury and serenity on its surface, it was rumored to be a hub of clandestine experimentation. There, research into altered states of consciousness, psychological reprogramming, and even identity manipulation was said to take place beyond the reach of legal oversight. If Maxie had been diverted there, it would mean she was not just a patient but a subject in a twisted experiment where her very self could be erased or rewritten. Spinelli, in the meantime, waded through despair that threatened to paralyze him. Maxie was not simply someone he cared about. She was the center of his loyalty, the anchor that tied him to a world constantly tilting between light and shadow. The news of her disappearance was more than devastating, it was existential. He felt as if his world had been hollowed out, leaving only an echo of her laughter, her presence, her warmth. And yet, instead of allowing grief to consume him, he redirected it into determination. Spinelli knew better than anyone that Maxie was not a woman who simply ceased to exist. Even in her absence, there were signs, traces, threads waiting to be found. He combed through every piece of information he could access, from hospital records to witness accounts, desperate for something anything would point him toward her. It was during this frantic search that Spinelli discovered the absence of the badge. James West had entrusted Maxie with Nathan's badge, not as a trinket, but as a living symbol of endurance, family, and protection. It was meant to be a talisman to remind her, in moments of fear or weakness, that she carried the strength of those who loved her. Its disappearance alongside Maxie's body was no small detail. To Spinelli, it was a message. Whether intentional or accidental, the missing badge became a tether, binding him to her through memory and faith. It whispered that she was still alive, that she was still somewhere to be found, that her spirit had not been extinguished. The shockwaves of her vanishing rippled beyond Spinelli. Poor Charles felt the absence like a wound, wrined and healed. People began to whisper in corridors and corners, wondering if Sidwell had grown too powerful, if their town had once again fallen prey to forces that thrived in secrecy. Parents pulled their children closer, friends second-guessed their trust, and the community as a whole found itself questioning where safety truly existed. Maxie's disappearance was not an isolated event, it was a declaration. It was a reminder that no matter how secure the walls appeared, the cracks ran deep, and those who knew how to exploit them could strike at will. For Spinelli, the urgency was unbearable. He knew that if Sidwell was behind this, Maxie's time was limited. Sidwell's victories always came at a cost, and the longer Maxie remained in his grip, the more likely it became that she would be erased forever. But the uncertainty that perhaps another enemy entirely had her was equally chilling. If Five Poppies was real, if it truly functioned as a hidden laboratory for those who treated human consciousness as clay to be molded, then Maxie could emerge as someone unrecognizable. Her identity fractured, her memories tampered with, her very essence rewritten. And so, as Port Charles sat in quiet dread, Spinelli's path crystallized into something unavoidable. The missing badge, the tampered cameras, the whispers of 5 Poppies of it formed a trail, however faint, for him to follow. He could not allow fear to dictate his steps, nor grief to anchor him in place. Somewhere out there, Maxie's life ticked away, each second pulling her further into the hands of those who would see her silenced forever. Spinelli vowed that he would not stop. He would follow the shadows, confront the monsters hidden within them, and fight until Maxie was brought back. For him, this was no longer just about saving her, it was about unraveling the darkness that threatened them all, and proving that love and loyalty could still carve light through even the deepest abyss. The worst-case scenario surrounding Maxie's disappearance is not simply that she was taken, but that she has been transported into the custody of someone whose connection to Sidwell is as mysterious as it is sinister. This shadowy figure, an associate who has remained unseen and unnamed, is believed to be far more than just a partner in crime. Within the world of Port Charles, whispers have grown louder, weaving through the corridors of General Hospital and the dark underworld alike, suggesting that this associate may carry a face that would shatter Maxie's very soul if she were to open her eyes and see it. Some claim it could be Nathan himself, somehow pulled back from death, altered by science and deception. Others fear it could be someone entirely different, an imposter molded to look like Nathan, sculpted by dangerous and experimental methods that border on the monstrous. Both possibilities carry with them a cruelty that extends beyond physical harm, plunging Maxie into a nightmare where love, memory, and identity are all weaponized against her. If Nathan, or someone who appears to be Nathan, is truly the force behind her captivity, then Maxie's ordeal transforms into something far darker than a simple kidnapping. It becomes psychological torture, designed to strip her of stability and anchor her in confusion. Imagine awakening from the haze of a coma only to be confronted by the face of the man she once loved, the father of her child, a man she believed she had lost forever. The emotional whiplash would be unbearable, relief clashing with disbelief, joy tangled with dread. And if that face belonged not to Nathan but to someone who had stolen his likeness, then the cruelty would intensify. For Maxie would be trapped in a hall of mirrors where her heart became the battlefield. Each moment would serve as a test of her sanity, forcing her to question whether what she saw was a miracle, a trick, or the prelude to her destruction. The implications of this possibility stretch far beyond Maxie herself. Port Charles thrives on secrets, on the unearthing of truths that cut deeper than any blade. If Sidwell's associate truly wears Nathan's face, it would not only devastate Maxie but ripple through every relationship she has ever built. James, who carries Nathan's memory in every action, would be torn between hope and horror. Spinelli, whose devotion to Maxie has never faltered, would find himself battling a ghost he could never compete with. Even the broader community would struggle to process the resurrection or fabrication of a man whose life and death shaped so many storylines. The weight of that revelation would fracture trust, ignite suspicion, and fuel battles both in courtrooms and back alleys. For Maxie, however, the most immediate danger lies not in the broader consequences but in her own fragile state. In a hidden facility, stripped of protection, she would not merely be a patient but a subject. Her coma might be prolonged deliberately, sustained not as a medical necessity, but as an experiment in control. Scientists loyal to Sidwell's empire, or perhaps loyal only to their own ambitions, could manipulate her dreams, rewrite her memories, or implant new identities entirely. Instead of waking as herself, Maxie might awaken as someone molded to serve another's purpose upon in a grander design she could neither fight nor escape. Her willpower, her history, even her motherhood could be twisted into weapons against the very people she loves. This is where the cruel genius of Sidwell's network reveals itself. By holding Maxie in such a state, she becomes both hostage and experiment, a living guarantee that her silence will be preserved, while also offering endless opportunities for manipulation. Whether she is dangled as leverage against Sonny, reshaped to spy on her own family, or broken entirely to serve as a vessel for another identity, her future under this scenario is steeped in terror. Each path leads not just to suffering but to the possibility that even if Maxie is found, she will not be the same woman who was taken. Outside the fictional world, Kirsten Storm's absence from the canvas allows the writers to transform this storyline into a crucible for every character tied to Maxie. Her disappearance is not treated as a gap but as a narrative accelerant, forcing Spinelli, James, Anna, Dante, and even Sunny into confrontations that expose their strengths, weaknesses, and hidden loyalties. Spinelli in particular becomes the emotional heart of the search. His grief, sharpened into determination, places him in direct conflict with forces he would normally avoid. Driven by the belief that Maxie is leaving him clues like the missing badge Nathan once carried, Spinelli positions himself at the center of a dangerous chase, risking everything to uncover where she has gone. Meanwhile, the town itself becomes unsettled, buzzing with theories and fears. Port Charles has long lived under the shadow of villains who blurred the line between life and death, but Maxie's disappearance awakens memories of past horror-soft Casadini experiments, of Jason's lost years, of masks and altered identities. Every whisper of 5 Poppies, every suggestion of a secret lab, deepens the dread that Maxie has been pulled into something much larger than even Sidwell's empire. For the residents of Port Charles, it becomes more than a question of finding her. It becomes a question of whether the world itself is tilting toward forces they cannot comprehend or control. Thus, Maxie's absence becomes paradoxically her greatest presence. She is the unseen force that drives allies together, that pushes enemies into the open, that forces long-buried secrets into the light. Her disappearance is not simply a pause in her storyline but the ignition of a narrative wildfire, one that promises to reshape the dynamics of power, love, and survival within General Hospital. The audience waits not only to see whether she will return but to discover in what state she will emerge, whether as the woman they have always known, or as a shattered version of herself, rewritten by the darkness that swallowed her. In that uncertainty lies the true brilliance of the arc. Maxie's story has transcended her physical presence, and her fate now represents the battle between hope and despair, love and manipulation, life and something far more chilling. Spinelli's descent into this dangerous search is nothing short of a transformation of his entire being. He has always been known in Port Charles as the quirky, brilliant hacker, the man who could break through digital firewalls and uncover truths hidden in lines of code. But now, his journey demands something far greater. He must step outside of the safety of his machines and confront the physical, ruthless world that Sidwell controls. It is no longer enough to trace emails or manipulate security cameras. He must face the men and women who thrive in shadows, who kill without hesitation, who see Maxie not as a person but as leverage. Every night, as Spinelli pores over hospital records, hacked security files, and whispered rumors from the underworld, the weight of Maxie's absence gnaws at him. It is not just a mission, it is survival of the heart. The torment inside him grows with each passing day. Maxie's face lingers in his mind like a ghost, her voice echoing in memories that feel both comforting and cruel. He relives the moments when she smiled at him, the times she confided in him, the bond that tethered them together through years of chaos. And yet, now, all he has are traces, a missing badge, a corrupted security file, an empty hospital bed. His heart is torn between hope and despair, between the certainty that she must be alive and the dread that each second apart pulls her deeper into Sidwell's clutches. This inner battle fuels him, but it also weakens him, leaving him vulnerable to mistakes as he pushes himself beyond exhaustion, driven by the single thought that failure is not an option. Port Charles itself becomes a reflection of his anguish. Once a town that carried on despite mob wars and family feuds, it now feels heavy with dread. Maxie's disappearance is not viewed as an isolated tragedy, but as a symbol of something much larger. People whisper that if Sidwell's reach is long enough to strike her down in a hospital, then no one is truly safe. Parents worry for their children, families tighten their circles, and trust erodes in every corner. Yet within this atmosphere of fear, a spark of determination begins to grow. Those who love Maxie, Spinelli, Anna, Dante, James, and even Sunny himself know that to remain passive is to surrender. Her disappearance becomes a rallying point, uniting individuals across fractured alliances, forcing people to set aside old grudges in order to bring her back and dismantle the system that took her. The hunt for Maxie is not linear. Each lead Spinelli follows opens doors to more questions than answers. One source insists she was moved by Sidwell's men, another swears a woman matching her description was seen boarding a private plane, while others whisper of a hidden facility tied to the 5 Poppies resort. The rumors twist like vines, threatening to entangle Spinelli in paranoia. But he cannot stop. Each false lead is another stab of pain, each dead end a reminder that time is slipping away. His nights blur into days as he navigates between the sterile glow of computer screens and the dangerous streets where Sidwell's name is spoken only in fear. At the same time, deeper revelations begin to emerge. Spinelli starts piecing together fragments that suggest Maxie's disappearance is not just about silencing her but part of a broader design. Sidwell's empire is built not only on power and intimidation but on manipulation of human identity itself. The idea that Maxie could be subjected to experiments that alter her mind, erase her memories, or turn her into something unrecognizable terrifies him more than death itself. For Spinelli, the possibility that Maxie might one day be found but no longer remember who she is, or worse, no longer remember him, becomes his greatest fear. Saving her is not just about finding her body but preserving her soul. Every discovery peels back layers of betrayal in Port Charles. Allies are not always who they appear to be, and enemies sometimes wear familiar faces. Spinelli must learn to trust his instincts, even when evidence points in conflicting directions. His search forces him to confront long-buried secrets, government ties to Sidwell's operations, corrupt officials who turned a blind eye, and even the suggestion that people within the hospital may have facilitated Maxie's removal. The deeper he digs, the more dangerous the journey becomes, as Sidwell's empire begins to notice his movements. Shadows closen, warnings are delivered, and Spinelli realizes that by chasing Maxie, he has painted a target on his own back. Yet despite the danger, he refuses to turn away. His mission is not only about Maxie anymore, it is about exposing Sidwell's entire network, about dragging into the light the rot that has spread through their world. Maxie's disappearance has become the thread that, once pulled, could unravel everything. And for Spinelli, that means every risk is worth taking. His love for Maxie, his loyalty to her memory, and his belief that she is still alive somewhere fuel him to push past his fears. He transforms from a man who once hid behind screens into a fighter willing to stand toe-to-toe with the most dangerous forces in Port Charles. As this search continues, Port Charles itself braces for the fallout. Old alliances fracture under pressure, new ones form in desperation, and the entire town seems poised at the edge of revelation. Maxie's disappearance is no longer just a storyline of one woman in peril, it is the trigger for a reckoning. The truths Spinelli uncovers have the potential to topple empires, destroy families, and reshape the balance of power. The question is no longer just whether Maxie can be found, but what price will be paid when she is, and whether the woman who returns will be the Maxie they knew or someone forever changed by the darkness that consumed her. In this way, the search for Maxie becomes more than a rescue mission. It becomes the crucible through which Spinelli and Port Charles must pass, a test of their courage, their loyalty, and their willingness to confront the shadows that have haunted them for too long. And as the storm gathers, one thing is certain: her disappearance has become the catalyst for truths that will tear open the very heart of their world, leaving nothing untouched and no one unchanged.